Hey there, welcome to another Genesis Models kit review. I'm Bill Boudreau, and what I have for you today is Academy's F-35B model. This is a 2020 new tool released from earlier this year, and I know that there are already some kit reviews out there that you can look at, but today is a little bit different here. This kit is joined by a couple of friends, or enemies. We'll just call them frenemies here. What I've also got here today are Italy's F-35B model right there, and Hasegawa's as well. So as we kind of go through the sprues and as we kind of talk through some of the areas of the instruction booklet, we can actually do a direct comparison of this Academy model to these other two kits that are here. So we can get a good comparison on all three of these kits. So let's get moving and let's start taking a look at that plastic. Really cool box art on this cover here with that B model landing on a carrier with a nice battleship background. I do really like Academy's boxing here. Coming over to this side, we see a lot of very impressive pictures of this aircraft with all of the ram panel detail, everything exposed, a little bit of beast mode going on right there. So overall, I think some really good impressive pictures. Kit number 12569. Little paint index going on this side of the box. Other than that, nothing too spectacular. Coming into the kit, everything was very nicely packaged within the box to current Academy standards. Coming over to our clear parts here, very nice shape to that particular canopy piece, and I'm not really seeing any sort of blemishes whatsoever. Same with that electro-optical targeting system window that are on all of the F-35 models. So far so good with the start on the clear parts. Coming over to here, we've got a couple identical sprues, but let's focus in on this lower forward fuselage piece here. And trying to get some good lighting on there for that ram panel detail. We'll talk about more about the ram panels later on when we get to the fuselage parts, but so far so good with this lower piece. I think a differentiator between the Hasegawa and Italy kits from this one is that this has this, for that extra fan system that the B model has on it, this grate right here is built into this particular piece, whereas it was a separate piece on Hasegawa and Italy's kits. So we've got a couple identical sprues here, mainly just some nicely detailed pylons here, as well as some of the weapons, some good detail on some of these bombs. Not a whole heck of a lot of detail generally on air-to-air missiles, whether you're talking about, I think that's the AMRAAM and certainly the Sidewinder. A little bit of detail here on these bombs as well. So all in all, good with the weapons so far. Coming over here to these two sprues, which definitely something we want to spend some time on here. And let's focus in on this engine sprue right here, specifically the nozzles, right? I think for these particular nozzle vanes, Italy really did a great job at the shape with all the serrations and so on and so forth, and even the ceramic plates that are on the inside of these engine nozzles too. So I did build the A model of Academy's F-35 kit, and they just got that engine nozzle shape badly. I mean, it was just off, so it's nice to see that they fixed that here. So taking a look at this option right here, where you can choose either the landing mode or the VTOL mode, or the flight mode right there. So, you know, that's pretty similar to Italy's kit, where you either had one or the other. And coming over here, I actually have Hasegawa's engine nozzle right here, or engine, where that one is unique in a way where you really only had one engine, but it was rotatable so that you could build it in its flight mode, or you can rotate them so that they're in their landing mode. So, you know, it's not Hasegawa's cool feature with these engines. You know, and the other thing I want to point out too is that on this engine, you don't really see any pipe runs or LRUs or engine accessories that are mounted on these. But if I bring you over to Italy's kit, you can actually see some of that detail on the exterior of their engine, especially way down in here. Not sure if you can catch that on the camera, but they even have some grid detail with the engine casing here on Italy's kit. And although Hasegawa's engine does not have that grid detail right there, they do have some of those plumbing runs and accessories that are mounted on the engine. So, you know, I think that's where Academy kind of loses it a little bit, not putting a little more detail into those engine accessories. And, you know, if you're going to build that aircraft in that landing mode, that engine actually is, you know, very exposed, so you will be able to see that lack of detail that they have on these casings. Coming over here to the cockpit tub, you know, it's a small piece and there's not a lot of detail on these side panels, but then again in the real aircraft there's not a lot of that detail there anyway because of those touchscreen avionics displays that they have. So overall I think this tub is on par with the other two manufacturers that we're talking about. And coming over here to the instrument panel, obviously you can see, you know, there's nothing going on right there in the center of that instrument panel, and that's because Academy is also relying on a decal to be able to provide that avionics display. Otherwise, some really nice detail on these side panels right here, as well as that center console. Taking a look here at the wheels, right, here's the nose wheel with a very nice shape to that particular hub. And then this being the rubber for the main wheels, so obviously on a different sprue we're going to have the hubs for these main wheels. So you are going to get a very nice clean line between your hub and the rubber on the main wheels. Coming over here, we're going to look at the seat. Very nice shape to that Martin Baker ejection seat, especially with that unique headrest that they have on this particular aircraft. And then of course looking at the side structure for those seats. Let me try to zoom in a little bit here. I think you can see some nice detail with the sides of the seats as well. So far so good. Let's come over to this sprue. Now this is what I'm looking forward to. I love the fact that Academy's kit really has a nice weapons bay for it, and you can see that detail. We've got different types of plumbing runs, different diameters rather, you know, some larger diameter in the forward and the aft parts, even some detail for where some of the weapons mount as well. You know, bringing this over to kind of the this is the Hasegawa kit. You know, you don't get a weapons bay with Hasegawa's B model, but of course, you know, on Italy's kit, you can see that Academy is on par with Italy's kit because Italy has an exceptional level of detail inside that weapons bay that you can expose as well. So I think Academy is very much on par with Italy in having that weapons bay and all that detail associated with it. Looking at the landing gear, here's the main landing gear. Love the detail with those. Engine intake pieces here and here, as well as right here. We'll talk more about that when we get to the instruction booklet, but really I think the great feature is the fact that you don't have any ejector pins or anything that you have to deal with for these particular parts. Coming over here, we've got some guided bombs, you know, one-piece guided bomb assemblies here, and then of course the only thing you have to glue on there are, you know, two of the fins. So here are all the fins with some very nice panel line detail with those fins. So far so good. And then of course here we have the flaps. You have two sets of flaps, and obviously you can choose between that flight mode or the landing mode. Last couple sprues here. Let's get this first one out. Alright, this first one, this is where we start to get to see the exterior detail of this particular aircraft, and let's focus on these vertical fins too, because we have some good separation between what is that rudder and what is the vertical stabilizer, and that's all dictated by very nice panel line type detail that's right there. And of course you can even see some of what would otherwise be ram panels that are on these particular pieces as well. So good look at the initial structure. You know, kind of taking a look at the sprue as a whole, you have different options you could do for different panels that go on different areas of the aircraft. You know, whether you have a one-piece closed assembly or the two-piece open assembly. That's for that fan system, for the engines, the engine and the engine nozzle. So you have that as well. Some of the landing gears as well. So very, very cool. And every single configuration has very nice edge detail because that's actually part of the ram panel system that gets painted that different colors. So all in all, I think all of the doors look really, really good. Now taking a look here, we've got our nose landing gear bay, which is some really nice structural detail inside there. So very cool. Here we have the ceilings of the main landing gear base. So you can see that structure and texture that they have in there and the different runs for either electrical lines or something else. And I can tell you that from their A model, they didn't have any of that level of detail. So it's nice to see that with their B model release this year, they did do that. One other part I want to talk about right here is, you know, this particular piece, which is that fan assembly. It is a one-piece assembly, which, you know, is kind of difficult from a painting perspective because, you know, those walls of that particular piece are white and you're going to have that titanium color for those blades. So I think that makes it a little bit harder to paint. That was kind of the same case with what went on with Hasegawa's kit, but for Italy's kit, that, although you can't really see down in there because of the grill, Italy had a separate engine blade from the actual wall structure, so you really didn't have to worry so much about the painting because you could paint the walls as well as the blades separately. So just a little point of concern with Academy's kit right there, and something you have to think about as you're doing your painting. We have our wheel hubs here, so really nice detail for these particular wheel hubs right there, and you come along the other side, you actually see some really good brake detail on the inside of them as well. And it's real, still, I like knowing that the hubs are separate from the rubber, so you're going to get that nice clean line. And of course, the last thing to point out on this particular sprue is you have two sets of horizontal stabilizers and elevators, and obviously that's because of flight mode versus the VTOL mode, or the vertical landing mode, vertical takeoff and landing. Last particular sprue right here, and this is one that I really want to focus some time on for these fuselage halves. But first I want to point out the fact that, let me zoom out here so I can get the full sprue on. I want to point out the fact that we actually have the gun pod that comes with this kit. It's a two-piece gun pod. The Hasegawa Beast Mode kit comes with the gun pod, but Italy's kit does not have that type of weapon. And of course, if you use that gun pod on the belly of your aircraft, you won't be able to open up those inside weapon bay doors that are right here. All right, let's hone in on the fuselage. I'm not going to focus so much on the rest of the doors that are on here, but that fuselage right here is very, very nice. I mean, of course, the focal point of the F-35 are all of the ram panels, and I think as we can kind of see here, it is all very clean and crisp and very well detailed, very much like, you know, both the Italy and the Hasegawa kits. So they certainly did a lot of focus on making sure that, you know, the best features of this aircraft are really, really well defined. And you can even see that here on the bottom side fuselage half. So all very cool. Even some nice detail for that exhaust that comes out when it's in flight mode, or not flight mode, but landing mode. So all in all, I think their level of ram panel detail is on par with Hasegawa and Italy's. However, what I would say is that their ram panels are very slightly raised. Okay, Hasegawa's kit, all of these panels are just basically flush with the surface of the airframe. These are very slightly raised. Now Italy's are more prominently raised than Academy's, and I think, you know, that's something that a lot of people debate on forums and everything like that. They say, well, I don't like Italy's kit because their ram panels are way too pronounced and they protrude too much off of the airframe. Academy steals the show here because they're kind of in between that flush level of Hasegawa and that high level of protrusion on Italy's kit. And when you look on the real aircraft, or even if you find some pictures that show that, they are actually very slightly raised from the surface. So I think Academy kills it right there with the ram panel detail. So there is no doubt that when this kit gets together, it is really going to look like an exceptional F-35. Alright, let's take a quick look at these decals right here. Nice decal sheet. Of course, you get all of the ram panels you know, as decals. So of course you can decide to use the decals, or if you want to individually paint. I found that when you had raised panels for all of those ram panel lines, they were easier to hand paint. So you don't have to use the decals, but they're there of course for you. And they're nice, and you know, I wouldn't say that they're as thick as Hasegawa, but I wouldn't say they're as thin as Cartograph decals. I did build the F-35A model from Academy, and I didn't have any problems whatsoever with their decals on that A model, so I anticipate you won't have any issues with these either. Real quick focal point on the instruction booklet. Nice little paint index right there on the front. Coming over here we have, of course, you know, starting off with that weapons bay and the landing gear ceilings going on to that bottom fuselage. I'm going to talk a little bit about the engine intakes here in a little bit, but you do have a similar engine assembly that's like Hasegawa's kit. Academy was a bit different. Academy's fan system was kind of like a unique one-piece type assembly that you could put in between the fuselage halves, whereas this is a little bit different than that for that fan system. The engine assemblies right there. We have, okay, so this is where I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about. This is what's going to make or break Academy's kit right here, and that's the fit of their engine intakes to their actual fuselage section. Okay, if that is a poor fit, you're going to be doing some filling and sanding at that engine intake area right here. If it is a really good fit, then obviously you're not going to have to worry so much about it. And I can tell you that their A model was a very, very good fit, but also so too were Italy's kit and Hasegawa's kit. Those had a really exceptional fit with all of the engine intake pieces. We've got the instrument or the cockpit assembly going in there. Here's that single piece fan exhaust that goes on there. That I'm not too thrilled about. That blade is, you know, a one-piece part to the walls of that exhaust system. Here's that lower forward fuselage part that goes there, and again, I think as it goes to this particular area right here, that is part of that engine intake. If that is a poor fit, that's going to add a lot of time to the build. Their A model, their A model didn't even have this lower level section. It was actually, and same with Italy and Hasegawa's kits, that forward nose section right there was actually part of a tip to tail fuselage halves that, you know, you had the top half and the bottom half, and that lower forward fuselage part was part of that bottom fuselage half. So on this particular system right here, Academy has a unique design for being that one-piece lower forward fuselage. Of course, everything going together there. Exterior flight control surfaces going on. We have landing gears, got that gun pod that's mounting right in between the two weapons bays. Of course, all of the exterior bits with doors, weaponry, pylons going on. Of course, vertical stabilizers, horizontal stabilizers, depending on if you're going to do flight mode or if you're going to do the vertical takeoff or landing mode. Of course, more doors going on the top side of the aircraft, and then of course this is closed mode where you're putting those one-piece assemblies on for the doors. Canopy, pretty self-explanatory there. I think with that unique design of the canopy opening up from the rear side of it, and those actuators that are there as well, I think that really adds a good dimension to F-35, whereas your traditional is, you know, all canopies being open from the front side. You know, I love building these kits with that canopy open, just because of the unique look that that canopy has, opening from a different direction. Paint and markings, now of course VMFA 121, you know, the Green Knights, that's kind of the box feature of it for this particular kit, and those are the appropriate markings for it. But you have a couple other of squadrons that you can build within this kit as well. So nice little good touch there with a few different options, and then of course the back page of this being all of the sprue layouts. So sorry this kit review took longer than most, but I really did want to give you a good comparison between Academy's B model to that of Italeri and Hasegawa's. I think Academy really killed it on all the exterior features of their airframe, specifically all that nice ram panel detail and that weapons bay. It really does give Italeri's kit a run for its money. Now, if that fit of those engine intakes is just as good as, say, their A model or even the other two kits B models that we have here, then I really do think you're going to enjoy this build. But I'm not going to build it anytime soon because, you know, not only did I just get done building those two kits, but I also have Hasegawa's A model right there, and then I also built Italeri's A model right there. So, you know what, I think until Bobby maybe does a rapid video build of this kit, or maybe if he does a step-by-step video build of this kit, I think my mojo of F-35 kits is pretty much done. So, alright. Well, thank you for watching this more of a comparison kit review. I do hope you enjoyed, and until the next time, I'm Bill Boudreau, this is Genesis Models, and I'll see you in the next video.